Welcome everyone to this new day. It's day 6 and today we're going to talk about something which is very much relatable in our real world. From morning till night, every time, whenever we do something, it depends on certain things. For example, if my mom has made food, then I'll have food in the house. If not, I'll have to go and order Swiggy. If she has agreed, I'll go on a date. Otherwise, I'll have to keep on swiping right. So the real life is full of conditionals. Now, the same thing if you want to go and do in the world of programming. You want to execute few lines of the code when only certain conditions are satisfied, we make use of something called as conditionals. So let's get started with the hands-on manner that how in the world of programming, specifically in Java, how do we deal with conditionals. So now let's get started with the next topic called as conditionals. Sir, everything that we do in the world of the programming, I always feel it's related to the real world. For example, in the real world, the entire day is full of the conditions. Say for example, if the food is cooked, I'll go and sit on the dining table for the lunch, right? If she says yes, I'll go on a date. If no, I'll continue swiping to the right. So every day our entire phenomena is built on different types of conditional things, right? So if I'm trying to solve a real world problem, my programming should have the capability to take those kind of conditional calls. And we do that in the world of Java using something called as if else block, and we also use something called as a switch blocks. Both of these things are available in the Java. We'll try to talk about each of them. Let's try to see a hands-on example. With the example itself, we'll try to understand both of them. So let's move on. So I'll go and open my Eclipse where we have been writing all this code so far, and let me go and define another file inside this com.amerge. Right, our example, there's some error which is coming up. Let me go and define another file called as conditionals learning. Okay, cool. So now since I have to write the executable code, I know that anything that has to be written, it has to go inside the public static void main. By now you would have got habituated of seeing this public static void main, and then it has string args. Perfectly fine. And now I have to write the conditions, right? So let's take the real world condition itself that if C agrees, I'll go on a dinner date. Otherwise, I'll have to keep on swiping right. Right? That's what happens in today's modern dating. Let's try to see if I have to write that in the world of the code. How does that happen? So first, for that, we talked about a data type called as Boolean previously, right? So let me go and define a data type called as Boolean, and I go and call it a C agreed. Right, and let me say that its default value is true. Let's be happy. And then what I do to provide that conditional thing, right? I have to go and depict the conditional that should look something like this, right? If C agrees, then I should go on a date. Yay. And if not, what will happen? If not, then I should continue. Right. So to portray this condition, what I'll do is I can go and write something like this. If, and I go and say let's see agreed. Right. And if she agreed, let me go and write this out. I'm going to say yay, I am going on a date. Perfect. So I've written this if block, and then I go and write something like this. Sys out, and I go and say that out of conditionals. So let's try to go and run this and see what happens with this code right now. So if I go and run this, so this is printing yay, I am going on a date, and then out of condition. Let's try to understand this line by line. I know that Java code always executes line by line. So first of all, this line executed, C agreed is value is true. Now in the if block, whenever you have to go and define an if block, right? If block always comprises of this expression. This expression has to be a Boolean value. And if this boolean value is true, then it will go inside the if block. Whatever that you have written here inside the if block will get executed. If it is false, it will not go inside the if block. Since right now C, so it goes inside this and it prints yay, I am going on a date. And then post that it is printing out of conditionals. Fair enough. Let's say to make this change. So in this code, if I go and make this C agreed as false, can you guys tell me what will get printed as output? Since C agreed is false, it means that here when I come up, this value is false. If this value gets false, then inside the if, this doesn't execute. It will not execute at all. Then finally, only this line will get executed. So let's try to see that if that's already is true. What we are saying, if I go and run this, run as Java application, and it is saying out of conditionals. So C agreed is false, and then I'm able to print out of conditionals, sir. Fair enough. So this is a very basic example of a if block, a conditional block. And I go and talk about in the if block. If I again go and reiterate, this is the if signature, and in the if signature, this value has to be a boolean expression. Either this should be itself true or its value should evaluate out to be true. So for example, either C agreed, or I could have written something like this: C agreed is equals to true. Now this double equal to, which you see on the screen right now, is an example of operator. We'll talk about the operators in a while, but this operator is used to check the equality. And whenever you go and apply the the comparator operator which compares to true value, the output will always be a boolean. So when I go and say that C agreed, is it equals to true? The value could be either true or false. Fair enough. So I could have written C agreed equals to true, or simply C agreed because it's a boolean itself. So this is a very basic example of a conditional which only have the if block. Now in the life, most of the time people say us that we should be prepared about both good and the bad. So I know that if C agrees, I'm going to go to date. But what if C doesn't agree? I should have a B plan, right? So in the world of the programming, you apply the B plan using something called as a else block. So in the same if, the B plan could be that I go and add something called as else, which says that if C agrees, that's great, fine, I'll go on a date. If not, I'll go and say that sys out, I'll say that keep swiping right. Fair? So this is the B plan, sir. In the world of the programming, the B plan is done with the help of else. So if I have a if else block, from this I can say that either one of these two, either this will get executed or this will. If there's a if else block, one of if or else will get executed. Both if and else, they will never get executed at the same time. Either the if part is true, then the if part will get executed, otherwise the else part will get executed. So that's another basic way of writing the conditions. You write the if condition and then inside the else you go and write the else part. Fair enough. So we have understood that how do we go and write the basic conditionals in the world of the programming. Right. Now I just want to comment out all of these things so that these it's still there in the code, but I don't want it to be executed. So when I have a multiple lines like this, for example, here in this case, I have multiple lines of the code from here to here, and I want to comment all of them. How do we comment the multiple lines of content in Java? We use something called as, so we do a slash, then you put the 2-star mark, and then here also we go and put. So when you put things between these two, when you go and put things between these two, everything that you write gets commented. So this is the strategy to do the multi-line comments in Java. This is the strategy to do multi-line comments in Java. Perfect, fair enough. Let's try to move on further. Now, in the real world, sir, life is not always straight. It's not just if else. Many of the times you have to look around the multiple situations. Say, for example, just example after 12th, you gave entrance examination in the different engineering colleges. And luckily, you have the option of taking admission in 5 different colleges. And then you have to choose, right? Each college you will choose based on certain conditions. So in the world of the programming also, I should have a way where I can go and deal with the multiple conditionals, right? How do we do it? Let's try to see that. So let's try to see with the help of an example. Let me go and talk about, right? Let me go and paste this. Let's talk about that, there is, for example, I stay in Bangalore right now, and all over the country, the people are cribbing about the heat, hot temperature, but Bangalore has a very favorable weather right now. So depending on what temperature is there outside in the surrounding, I would like to go and say that what type of weather it is. Let's try to write this code with the help of the multiple conditions. So for that, let me go and define something called as int, and let me go and call it as Feb temperature. And I go and say that my favorite temperature is 75. Let's say that some number, right? Or let me go and say that my favorite temperature is 25 degrees centigrade, right? And then I go and say that my int current temperature, let's say that I'm sitting in Delhi, is 47, right? And then I go and say that what is my opinion about the, what is my opinion around the current temperature. I go and write this. So for this, to find the opinion, I'll go and make use of the condition. So first of all, I will go and say that if current temperature is less than the Feb, if current temperature is less than favorite temperature, right? What I'm going to do, I go and say that opinion is equals to it's little cold. Fair enough. Else if I go and say that if current temperature is less than favorite temperature minus 20, then I go and say that opinion is it's very cold. Now here I go and say that if the current temperature is in favorite temperature minus 5, right, something of this sort. And similarly I go and say that else if current temperature is less than the favorite temperature minus 20, then I go and say that opinion it's very hot, sorry, it's freezing cold, freezing less than favorite temperature. I will go and say that opinion is it's the best climate, right? And finally I can go and say that else if that is the case, if it is more than this, then I will go and say that opinion is it's hot. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you see here, I have the multiple if else block, the multiple conditions that I'm trying to check. I'm saying that if the temperature of the current situation is less than whatever the favorite temperature is minus 5, then it is little cold. If it is 10 degrees less, then it is very cold. If it is 20 degrees less, then it is freezing cold. If it is less than equals to, then it is the best temperature, otherwise it's hot, right? So here if you see here, I have used the multiple conditionals. So in the world of Java, you can make use of multiple condition by using a keyword called as a else if keyword. You make use of the else if keyword to provide the multiple conditionals in the world of Java. So we have talked about so far if, else, we have just talked about if, and then we have if, else if, and then finally else. Like this we have the multiple conditions available. Now let's try to go and run this. So let me go and call this as sys out, and let me go and run it as opinion, and let's try to run this. What happens? And it's saying that it's hot because my current temperature is more than 25. If I go and change this, let's say that if I go and change this value as 21 and right and run this, is the best climate. How did it came up? If you try to do the dry run of this code, this value is 25, this value is 21. Now this value is 21, this value is 25 minus 5, which is equals to 20. Now 21 is less than 20. No, it does not go inside the if block. I go and check this one. Current temperature is 21, favorite temperature minus 10, which is 25 minus 10, which is 15. Is 21 less than 15? No, it goes to the next one. The current temperature is 21, the favorite temperature is 25 minus 20, which is equals to 5. Is it less? No, so it goes here. Now current temperature is 21, favorite temperature is 25, it goes inside this. So this value, it's the best climate, gets printed. So out of all the if, else if, else if, else if, else, only one of them will execute. Never in the conditional block which you have if, else if, multiple code blocks will be executing. Only one of the many, whatever the condition is satisfied, will get executed. So this is, sir, how you go and execute the multiple if, else if. Now one key point to note here is that if can exist of its own, but the other statements like else if or else, they don't have their own independent existence. For the else if or the else to exist, it has to rely on if function. It has to rely on the if functions. If is there, then only else if will be there, then only the else will be there. If is not there, there is no use of else if or else. Perfect. Now let's try to move and talk about another type of the conditionals, which is called as nested conditionals, right? So let me go and comment this code again, and this is how we do it. We have already seen that. Let me go and comment it. So next thing is that called as the nested conditionals. So in the world of, in the real world also, right, many of the times you take one decision and then based on that you take another decisions, right? For example, let's take example of a nested decision in the world of the cricket, right? In the world of the cricket, first decision that you have to do is at the time of the toss. So if you win, you have to do or take decisions, right? Either to bat or to the ball. That's the first decision. Once let's say that you have taken a decision called as a bat, then inside that every over, every ball, the batsman may have to take a decision that I have to hit 6, I have to hit 4. So when you have to take the decision inside the another decision, that's a very typical example of the nested conditionals, right? Let's try to see that with the help of example. Let's say the very first example, which example was Boolean is agreed, right? Which value was, let's say that true. So my first condition is if is agreed. If C is agreed, then let's have another condition that ready for, I once said that Boolean, ready for dinner, and I once said that true, right? And I go and check that if ready for dinner if ready for the dinner, then I go and say that sys out, I'll go say that I'm going on dinner, else I'll go and say that's is out, going for coffee. Else I can go and say that boolean is our friends ready equals to true. I can say that if our friends ready, then I go and say that S is out, party with friends. Else I go and say that sleep, will sleep tonight. Fair enough. So if you see here in this code, there are multiple sections, right? So inside the if block, there's another if else block, right? This is nested inside. Inside this else block, I have another if else block. So when inside one if, you have another if else block. Inside this, there could be another if else block. This kind of a code example is called as a nested conditional or the nested if else. Normally, you should try to avoid too much of the nesting, because when it happens, it's very tough to decipher what you have written, and may also leads to hard to pick bugs. So with this, sir, we have understood how the conditional works in the world of Java using the if-else clause. There are multiple if-else conditionals which is possible. Normals, if, multiple conditional using if-else, if-else. There could be the nested if-else to take care of the complicated conditional situations. Now once we have done this, let's move and talk about the next one, which is switch. So now, sir, since we have already started learning and we have understood if-else concept, let's try to talk about that what is the other support of the conditionals in the world of the Java. Just like other programming language, Java also have a support for the switch statement. Let's try to understand switch with the help of the example directly. So for that, let me go and create another class, and let me go and call it as switch class. Let me go and call it as switch class. Now in the switch class, we have to define a public static void main, public static void main string args. Perfect. Now we'll first take an example and then we'll try to move ahead. So let's say that my use case is I have the months which is being represented by some numeral value. Let's say that we are representing January by 1, we are representing February by 2, like that. And that's how we have, kept the whole thing. So we mean that 1 is for the Jan, and then typically 2 is for the Feb, like this. And I have some month number called as int month equals to 6, right? And now I have to tell in words that if month value is equals to 6, which month is that, right? Which month is that, right? So for that, we go and make use of a keyword called as a switch, and inside switch, we go and provide the data. So inside the switch, we have to go and provide the data. So here the data value is month, right? And then I go and say that inside the switch, I go and provide the month, and then I go and say that case. Am I clear here? I go and say that case 1, I go and call it as, if the case 1 is the case, then I go and say that let me put the output also, string month string, let me initialize an empty string, and I go and call it, if that is the case, then I go and say that month underscore str value becomes equals to January, and then I go and put here as break. Then I have a case 2, and I go and say that if the case 2, then I go and say the month underscore str is equals to February, right? And then I go and say that once I find it, I should move to the next line, and I go and say that break, and then I go and say that case 3 and month underscore str equals to March, and I go and break. And finally, after the switch statement, let me go and put something called as sys out. Sys out. And I go and print month underscore str. Let's try to run this. First of all, let me go and put as 2 itself. If I go and run this, it is printing February. Let's try to understand what code it is, right? So I have written month equals to 2, and then I'm string month str, right? I'm saying to do the switch. I'm saying that if the month value here is what? 2. So out of all the case statement, it will try to go and match which case statement that it matches. Since 2 value matches with this one, so it goes and prints February. Fair enough. So the first point to note here is that the keywords switch is a keyword which takes some data, and then whatever data that you have passed, it will try to go and match in all the different cases, and whatever the case they get matched, whatever the code that you have written inside that case, that gets executed. But there are a few more things, right? There's something called as a break. In every case statement, we have used a keyword called as a break. Now, what is break used for? Right. So let's try to remove the break and see what happens in that case. So if I go and remove the break here, let's go and remove the break statement here, and let's try to go and let's try to run the code again here itself. If I remove the statement break, right, what happens? It has started printing March. It has started printing March. How? Because when I go and do the case statement here, if I don't put the break, it goes to the next case statement and it prints March. Let's say that I have another case statement that I go and put further, call as a case 4, and I go and say that month equals to SCR equals to April, and here I have a break statement. Right. Let's run this again. Now again the value is still coming the March itself. What happened? Because as soon as I came here in the March, and since there is no break, there's a break here, it does not move further. So every time you put a break in a case statement, it kind of indicates that okay, this case has been satisfied and I don't have to move to the further cases. If we don't find break, as soon as a case is satisfied, we will keep on moving to all the case statements. What I'm trying to say here is that if I have a switch and I have some data here, and then I have a case 1, I have a case 2, I have a case 3, I have a case 4, I have a case 5. Let's assume that this case is satisfied, and if there is no break which is applied in this case block, it will go and execute all the cases which does not have a break going down. So whenever you're making a case, make sure that you're not missing this term called as a break itself. Fair. We've understood this. Now let's assume that this value is 6. And since value is going to be 6, it's not going to match either this or this or this or this. What happened in that case? So if I go and run this code again, run as Java application. Since in this case, it does not match any of the cases because the value of the month was 6, neither case 1 was executed, right? Neither case 2, neither case 3, neither case 4. So none of the cases got executed. The month string value didn't get initialized. It was initially empty and now it is also empty. So when I go and print, it is not showing up anything. So in order to handle these kind of situation where say that no, we know that there are few finite cases where it will happen, and then I know that if it does not belong to that finite case, then I should go and throw some generic error or the message. We use a keyword called as default. We use a keyword called as a default. So I go and say that default, and then I go and say that sys out, and inside that I go and say that this is not a valid accepted month number. Fair enough, this is not a valid accepted month number. And then I go and let's try to run this. What happens in that case? It's printing the this is not a valid accepted month number. So sir, this is how you go and make use of the switch. We should make use of the switch because it, as you can see, it can make the things very linear. So in the case of the situation like this itself, where you don't have to do the multiple levels of nesting, and you have to pick among few limited options, right? Let's say that there are 5 options and you pick among those. In those kind of situation, using switch becomes much easier and intuitive to use. However, most of the time, almost all type of the condition could be done with the help of if else itself. Now, few interview per se question here. If I go and talk about the switch here, right? If I go and talk about what are the data types that can be expected here. So the accepted data types for the switch, accepted data types for the switch. What are those? The accepted data types for the switch are, you can keep either byte, you can keep either short, you can keep either integer, you can keep either character, you can also keep string. It was though initially not supported, but from the Java 7 I believe it has been allowed. And you can also go and keep the enum. These are all the data types which is provided. Now one strange thing here is one numeric data type is missing here. Let's say that if I go and call this as da 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 and call it L, and if we go and call it as long, if you see here, it has started giving me the error. If you can see here, it has started giving the error. So switch, typically it supports sort, byte, int, but it does not support long values. Maybe the reason is very logical. The Java maker would have thought that if this value is lying in the range of the long, how many cases is possible? It will be very long number of the cases, which might not be a good fit for the switch cases. So with this, we have concluded the conditionals. We have already learned about the if-else condition, and we have just now closed our switch statement. With this, we have come to the end of this session. We talked in details about the conditionals. We talked about if-else. We saw the other different types of the conditional as well. Keep me posted that how your learning journey is going on. We are just cruising very fast in making sure that we know everything which is around the core Java.